Listen very carefully and follow my instructions. Prepare your brain for the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast.
I gotta tell you, being an entrepreneur, I will not go through the rest of my career without taking nootropics. Aniracetam, Piracetam, Modafinil, Nupec, Uridine monophosphate. I mean, phenylpiracetam, forget it. You can always have a better brain.
The Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast is about to begin.
Episode number 52 of the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast. I am your host, Ryan Michael Bell. Thanks so much for being with me. Look, if you're listening to this on the 1st of January 2018, which is when this is going up, you still have some time because we're going to put this podcast up by 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you still have some time, basically midnight Eastern time, on so what will essentially be the 2nd of January 2018. We're ending the special where you can get anything at the Cortex Labs website for $7.99 off using the coupon code 27, okay? So if you're listening to this and it's not midnight EST, Eastern Standard Time yet, on the 1st of January 2018, you can get a bottle of Cortex for $27 using that coupon code. You can get any of our digital guides for extremely cheap using that coupon code. Our digital guides lay out how to use nootropics. Mostly they've got stacks in them for focus, for motivation, for verbal fluency, for HD vision, for productive drive, for heightened cognitive function. I mean, these are very powerful stacks. Get all that stuff at livecortex.com. That's where we've got our powerful nootropic products. And again, add anything to your cart, use the coupon code 27, and that'll take $7.99 off of it. If you're listening to this after that point, we always have a coupon code active so long as you're not using other coupon codes in conjunction with it. And that coupon code is FIVE, F-I-V-E, the word 5, F-I-V-E, and that takes $5 off of anything. So you can get one of our guides, our digital guides that give you many nootropic stacks, or the powerful, mighty Cortex nootropic stack. All right, so I am perusing through the Nootropics subreddit, which is a great place to sort of get good topics to talk about. I've been talking about this topic of cholinergic overload and taking too much of, especially of the super bioavailable acetylcholine precursors, for years. I mean, years and years and years I've been talking about this. And it stems from my time early in nootropics. Alpha GPC, Piracetam, and Alcar were the first nootropics that I fussed with. It was like 9 years ago. And I remember running into, depression and cholinergic overload and like really weird symptoms from taking choline, particularly alpha GPC in high doses. And so, I just came to recognize then that that I just couldn't tolerate 500, 700 milligrams alpha GPC, like what seems to be the general recommendations, which I think are totally crazy. I used to think, well, maybe I'm just kind of in a minority. Now I'm 9 years in, like, no. It's crazy to take a lot of the bioavailable choline sources. There's a case for that, and I'll get to that here in a bit. But for most folks, the bottom line is that with CDP choline and with alpha GPC, they're just not going to require a whole lot of it. And I'll get to dose ranges and what I really suggest here in a bit, even in conjunction with racetams, in conjunction with other nootropic compounds, and by themselves. The Nootropics subreddit thread that I'm referring to, is a thread about Aniracetam. But as you dig a little deeper, it basically goes into how this guy essentially was taking too much choline and running into a problem. I'm going to read to you this guy's thread, his post, and just to get to give you an idea of what was going on with him. Then I'm going to talk about what he ended up doing, which fixed the problem, and then it'll reinforce the point I want to make, which, if I haven't made it clear by now, lower dosing the bioavailable choline precursors is the best way for most folks. Here's the guy's thread. It goes, not responding to Aniracetam, in which he basically just had the contention that he wasn't responding to Aniracetam. Folks make this mistakes to a lot, and so let this be a lesson for folks. Here it is. I am sure that the Aniracetam I ordered is real. I got it from Nootropics Depot. I feel effects from it. I start getting this weird memory loss. Can't think of words, foggy brain, and super depressed. The effects I am describing, I think, might be due to too much CDP choline. So it's kind of on the right track there. I tried taking 250 milligrams of CDP choline with 1,500 milligrams of Aniracetam. I tried lower doses before that with the same results, but weaker. Should I try skipping the choline source or reducing it significantly or something? I heard with Aniracetam you should use a 4-to-1 Aniracetam to CDP choline ratio. like 200 milligrams of CDP Choline, 800 milligrams Aniracetam. Once again, I feel the effects from it all. I feel like depression, foggy brain, can't recall words, terrible memory. I heard that's from too much acetylcholine. Okay, so that's the guy's thread. A couple major points I want to make here that I think are going to be useful for a lot of folks. Number one, there is no ratio on Aniracetam to CDP Choline. Okay, that is made up. That is something somebody made up. And, look, my position on this is that there really is no Aniracetam to CDP Choline ratio. There isn't one because there isn't an applicable, ratio. Specifically, let's just go with Aniracetam and CDP Choline. There is a generally applicable Aniracetam to CDP Choline ratio. It just doesn't exist, right? If somebody perpetuated that through the web somehow, like through their experience, and folks like Reddit and said, "Oh, this might be the case. This might apply to me." That's one thing, and that happens with a lot of things, like adrafinil, for example. People always say, people always repeat the meme. Well, isn't that liver toxic? Isn't it hard on your liver? Nowhere on the web. I'm sure you've heard this too. If you're a nootropics veteran or nootropics anything, you've been taking nootropics for a while. Nowhere on the web is that ever proven. Nowhere is that demonstrated. Not even on the adrafinil page, like on the main adrafinil page on examine.com. It just doesn't show. I mean, the only mention of side effects, particularly, have to do with facial muscle spasms as a result of some sort of dopaminergic, overstimulation. And so that's just one of those things. Now, adrafinil could be hard on the liver because it has to metabolize it into modafinil. That's what adrafinil is. It's essentially a precursor to modafinil. Your liver turns it into modafinil. That does not mean it's hard on your liver. It does not mean that. In fact, I've taken afinols and et cetera over the years, and I've never once have elevated liver enzymes. That's an anecdotal. Doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's my anecdotal. Okay, but that's one of the things that gets perpetuated through the web. That people hear and then go, oh, I think this is like the case. There is no Aniracetam to CDP Choline ratio. The only instances in which dose strategies can be generally applicable is in using a very particular nootropics dosing methodology, which we break down in Smarter, Better, Faster, which is our digital nootropics guide for everybody that's needs to learn how to take nootropics. That are encompassed in the stacks that we list in the Noopept Pro stack list, which is another one of our digital nootropic stack list guides. The stacks that we put out in the Racetam God Guide, which is all the major 8 racetams, explanations of them in stacks with those racetams. The nootropic stacks for the business professional, which is another digital guide that has 100 stacks that are centric around facilitating business productivity. And then the beginner's guide to Aniracetam, which gives you 25 Aniracetam stacks, teach you how to use Aniracetam, teach you how to cycle Aniracetam, teach you about choline sources, all these things. The stacks in those guides employ very particular nootropics methodology, where you use one compound as a base. That's the primary functional component of the nootropic stack. And then you dose that in medium to high doses or regular doses, what might be regular in their sort of nootropic sphere, and then the rest of the compounds, you basically medium to low dose them. So a good example of a stack that's going to be pretty applicable to a lot of people, not everyone because nothing is, but far more than a nebulous idea of an Aniracetam CDP Choline ratio, would be 500 milligrams Aniracetam, 500 milligrams oxiracetam, 175 milligrams alpha GPC, 5 milligrams Noopept, 5 milligrams vinpocetine. Okay, that's a stack right there that's put together so surgically, low doses on the choline source, picks alpha GPC for a reason, and has vinpocetine in the mix to add blood flow and oxygen to the brain as well, and combines 2 racetams and Noopept. So you get stuff really working on the cholinergic system, but you're only putting 175 milligrams alpha GPC. Some folks would think that's too little of a choline source. Not even close. The truth is which is aligned with the point that I'm trying to get across here, is that the choline sources, the bioavailable choline sources, really, first of all, some of them have a super high half-life, like CDP Choline. It's like 60 or something hours. And then otherwise, they're very, very absorbable. CDP Choline is near absolute. It literally has a 99% absorbability, bioavailability once it gets in there. And I'm not sure about alpha GPC, but that's super bioavailable too. Crosses into the blood-brain barrier, it affects neurochemistry right away, increases acetylcholine concentrations, has more choline per milligram than CDP choline or choline bitartrate. Very powerful stuff. But the stack that I just gave you it, employs a very particular methodology of not going over on anything, right? Basically going under. We went under on the Aniracetam. Normally it's 700 milligrams. We went under on the oxiracetam. Normally the regular dose folks normally suggest is a gram. We're at 500 or 400, wherever we were at. We low dose Noopep at 5 milligrams. See, that stack is going to turn the brains on of a lot of folks, and they're not going to run into side effects. You guys want to know why I suggest all this stuff and why I'm conservative in my approach with nootropics? Because I think about them taking them in a sustainable way. It's the only way I've been able to take them for 9 years. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to take them. And secondly, I've run into a ton of side effects taking too high doses of particular nootropic compounds, especially cholinergics. Okay, so going back to this guy's thread, he took 1,500 milligrams of Aniracetam. First of all, that's probably a little too high. I wouldn't start taking 1,500 milligrams of Aniracetam. I'd start between 400 and 700. 700 is kind of where folks start at. I like to go on the lower end and kind of just get a range within the lowest to the regular dose. So I'd start 400 to 700 milligrams. That could have been part of his problem. But I truly do think that the 250 milligrams of CDP choline was his issue. And then you've got a bunch of people that tried to answer him in this thread. And then the last comment on this guy's thread was this. Guys, I discovered something. I tried reducing the CDP choline to 150 milligrams, which is a 100 milligram difference. You started at 250, where it actually seemed to help instead of giving me weird brain fog and memory loss. Then I took Aniracetam on top of the CDP choline at 800 milligrams, and all the colors looked really cool, I guess. Also, I'm really happy and calm. It started kicking about 30 minutes ago. Okay, so basically he's saying has some optimization of colors, and there's probably a mechanism for that. There's probably some modification of the occipital lobe in the brain, which controls your vision and stuff that you process, stuff that you see, stimulus from your eyes in your occipital lobe. So it might be optimized, and that could be why. Choline also, though, is in your retina at some concentrations, and it's been demonstrated that mothers that don't get enough choline in their diets, that the retina cells literally don't develop the way that they're supposed to develop, and they end up having some sort of deficiency, which makes the person have less good eyesight. How crazy is that? Choline's important for eyesight, right? That's one of the reasons people take Noopep and get HD vision, and it's one of the reasons that people take certain cholinergic nootropics and colors start to look really good and their vision starts to improve. There really is something going on with choline, and it has to do with the retina, cells in the retina, or just the retina in general. I forget exactly what it was, but we mentioned it on a video recently. Let me see if I can Google this real quick. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here's the article. This is the article that I was referring to when I first read it. The salient point is choline supports the development of more stem cells that form nerve cells in the brain and retinal cells in the eye. Just as more nerve cells in the brain translate to better memory throughout life, more retinal cells in the eye mean better vision over a lifetime. Insufficient choline, especially for the developing fetus and infant, means vision will be less than optimal for the adult throughout the aging process. How crazy is that, right? And so, I kind of went on a tangent there, but that's why, the guy was getting cool colors. There's an effect on retina cells with choline that is probably responsible for that. Okay, so the bottom line is he started out at 250 milligrams of CDP choline. Now he's at 150 milligrams, and he feels a lot better. Now, he did take his Aniracetam dose down pretty considerably. Where was that in the beginning? 1,500. Yeah, it was at 1,500 milligrams, and now he's at 800. So 700 milligram difference in Aniracetam, pretty significant. So the Aniracetam, might have just been putting a whole bunch of choline into use, and still the CDP choline was way too much. It was way too much, acutely available acetylcholine for his brain. He took the Aniracetam dose down, took that CDP choline dose down to 150 milligrams, and that's where he's at, feeling good and calm. There's a couple points I'd like to make here. Number one, a lot of folks take nootropics and they go, look, I tried, they're super confident. They'll email me like, yeah, dude, man, I tried everything, bro. I tried Aniracetam and choline. Yeah, it didn't work for me. And I even had a guy email me and was like, come on, man. It's implying that all of us, 20,000 people that are prominent folks that discuss this every day on the Nootropics subreddit, or there's probably more than that, 50,000, whatever, 100,000 maybe, as if we're all just making some stuff up about nootropics, implying that it's some sort of weird scam or something. And then I find out the guy took 2 grams of oxiracetam and 700 milligrams of alpha GPC. It's yeah, dude, that's why you felt like you couldn't think and your brain wasn't working correctly. That's way too much. Brain cannot. Basically the bottom line is this: you really want to try to optimize your baseline hellishly, and then you want to get your nootropics. You want to use nootropics as just a bump above that baseline. You don't want to go too crazy. The more crazy you go with doses, the more side effects come. You can get sustainable stacks, but you have to be considering cofactors and things that work super synergistically together. Again, there's a methodology. We break them down in all our digital guides. But the major secondary point is with the bioavailable choline precursors, you just have to go very low with them. Here's my dose range and here's my suggestions. By themselves, if you were to take CDP Choline and alpha GPC, not together, but if you just take them by themselves to get a nootropic benefit, the dose that I would start at would be between 50 and 150 milligrams. Okay, that's where I would stay. I would really try to stay there, and I'd try to find a good solid place. Because once with CDP choline, especially, once you go above 150 milligrams, then you start running into where you're not going to be able to take it every day for sure. You won't be able to take it sustainably. In a couple days, you'll start to notice side effects because it builds up quite quickly. The half-life is 60 or so hours on CDP choline, and it's massively bioavailable. It's almost absolute. Again, it's 99% available once you consume it orally, that's the dose range on it. Even with racetams, when you put them together, when you bring in some of the hardcore racetams, phenylpiracetam, pramiracetam, et cetera, that demonstratively use more acetylcholine. Aniracetam and oxiracetam are probably better examples because we got a rat study showing they release is like a certain percentage more acetylcholine gets released in the hippocampus of a rat brain. Even those that we know, at least by that rat study, that they provoke the use of acetylcholine more. I just think we don't need as much as people think we need. I think even then, so with racetams, you still want to dose in that range and perhaps just bump that range up an extra 25 milligrams. So with racetams, the dose range, with a regular dose racetam, I'm not talking about 4 or 5 racetam stacks because you might require more acetylcholine, more choline production in that case. But with, 700, 800 milligrams aniracetam, stick with between 50 and 150 milligrams of CDP choline. If you're going to do alpha GPC, stick with 50 to 150 milligrams of alpha GPC. As is, the case with this guy, took the dose down to exactly that 150. He's on the high end of that dose range, and he feels great again. And that's just where, I suggest going for folks. If you're going to take like as in the stack that we discussed before, there's 175 milligrams alpha GPC in that, 500 milligrams aniracetam, 400 milligrams oxiracetam, 5 milligrams Noopep, 175 alpha GPC, 5 milligrams vinpocetine stack. Then you've got more forces optimizing cholinergic signaling. You have 2 racetams that force the brain to release more acetylcholine. Probably Noopep forces the brain to release more acetylcholine too. And so you've got a little bit extra of that working on. So that little bit extra, which is really a lot, all things considered, it's a bunch of, it's Noopep, it's oxiracetam, aniracetam together, even though they're medium dosed. That's only probably provoking the need for choline in just in 25 milligram quantities, just 25 milligrams more, from 150 to 175 milligrams on the alpha GPC. Okay, so that's my take on it, guys. It's something that I'm super passionate about because, again, early in my day when I was fussing with piracetam and choline and Alcar at the very beginning, I just came to learn that, especially because I was thinking, I want to find a stack that I can take every day. And that was a mistake because you just can't. There's staple things you can take every day, but they've got to have cofactors. It's got to be sustainable. There are stacks like that, but the bioavailable choline sources could be like that depending on what else you're taking. But largely, you got to take them in low doses if you're gonna do that. And I would say that the folks that require 200 milligrams of alpha GPC every day of their lives, let's say, these are folks that are between 50 and 80 years old, have massive cholinergic deficiency or some sort of deficiency in acetylcholine functioning, or damage to the cholinergic signaling system, cholinergic receptors particularly, that they might have accrued over time, because they're old and because of aging and stuff. And so I know people that can take high dose Noopep. They take 300-400 milligrams CDP choline. They're good, and that is because they've probably got some atrophy in those areas. I also know people that are 50 years old take 500 milligrams CDP choline, and it gives them brain fog too. Even they can't even handle that much. So folks that really can handle larger quantities of the bioavailable choline sources, they're just older to have brain atrophy and stuff that's going on. That's what I think. That's what I've come to see. That's truly what I believe. And particularly folks with relatively good brain function as it is, even if you've got some degree of deficiencies in focus, in memory, as an example, you're going to want to stick with that 50 to 150 milligram dose range if you're taking the stuff by itself, and maybe bump it up in 25 milligram increments, monitoring and titrating accordingly if you're going to take it with heavy hitting racetams that force the brain to use more acetylcholine. Okay, so that's my take on it. Dude, just be conservative on it. Just go a little lower. The Cortex stack is a good example of that. We recently divulged the ingredient quantities, which is something we didn't do for a while, because when we put it out and the market loved it, and like Wall Streeters started taking the Cortex stack, and like folks everywhere, entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley started taking the Cortex stack. Somehow that got word to our competitors, and we had a couple people try to rip off the stack. They tried to create their own stack of it and put it out there, and that's why we didn't want to divulge the ingredient quantities. But we did recently, and the milligram quantity of CDP choline in the Cortex stack is 80 milligrams. It's not 100 milligrams. It's not 150 milligrams. It's not 300 milligrams. It's not even close. The uridine quantity is 150 milligrams. So you got 150 milligrams uridine, 80 milligrams CDP choline, right? 100 milligrams artichoke extract, 300 milligrams Bacopa monnieri. From the outside, this is when I say less is more, and folks come into it thinking you need these crazy high quantity stacks. This is a perfect stack. It's a perfectly balanced stack. That's why so many people get a good effect from the Cortex Nootropics stack. Folks would look at that stack in the beginning and go, that's not even enough. They'll look at the examine.com studies or something, or some study on uridine, not noting who it's done in. Is it done in an 80-year-old who needs more, neurogenesis and things that uridine does, or is it done in a 25-year-old or 30-year-old who's got good brain function? Folks will look at that and go, well, there's not even high enough quantities of these available compounds to do anything. Yet, poker players that sit for 5 hours and have to use their brains to play poker and make money rely on the Cortex Nootropic stack. Wall Street professionals who sit and look at numbers all day and make bets and do stuff like that rely on Cortex, this powerful stack. Folks that are a lot of business folks in the corporate world, Fortune 200, Fortune 500 companies, at the highest levels, some of these folks are taking nootropics and some of them are taking Cortex. Why do they rely on Cortex so much? Because we've got a well put together stack, and it's because of this milligram quantity wisdom that I've come to learn over the years that I want to share with you guys. Okay, lower dose on everything. See where you're at. Take those dose ranges, apply them with and without racetams, and take this guy's anecdotal where he started out with 1,500 milligrams aniracetam, 250 milligrams of CDP choline, took the aniracetam down, but more importantly, took that choline source down to 150, started responding awesomely, and had good brain performance from it. Thanks so much for listening. That has been episode number 52 of the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast. I hope I've been useful. I hope I've been helpful. I hope this has utility. I hope it'll apply to your life in some way. Support the broadcast, support the podcast, support the broadcast, support everything we do by going to livecortex.com and buying our powerful nootropic products. We sponsor ourselves. We are the sponsor of ourselves. We've got the Cortex stack, powerful pre-made stack. We've talked enough about it. You get it. We've got 5 digital guides. The beginner's guide to Aniracetam just launched. It is awesome. 25 powerful stacks, teaches you how to use Aniracetam, teaches you how to cycle, teaches you what to pair Aniracetam with. There's 27 compounds that Aniracetam stacks with in that digital guide. Teaches you what to take when you cycle off Aniracetam. Then we've got the new Pep Pro stack list, giant list of new Pep stacks. The Racetam God Guide, giant list of all the racetams, just stacks with all the racetam, to include some of the most powerful phenylpiracetam stacks on the planet are in the Racetam God Guide. Then we got Smarter, Better, Faster, which is a digital guide for people new to nootropics that want to learn everything and get stacks. And then we have the nootropic stacks for the business professional digital guide, which is 100 stacks that are targeted toward business productivity. Get all this stuff at livecortex.com. If you're listening to this on the 1st of January, 2018, which is when it's launching, and it's not midnight EST time, you still have time to get any of those products $7.99 off by using the coupon code 2727. The number's 27. If you're listening to this after that time, use the coupon code 5FIVE, and that'll take $5 off of anything you purchase at the Cortex Labs website, which is livecortex.com. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Cortex Stacks, on Twitter at twitter.com/Cortex Stacks, and on the web at livecortex.com, and the blog at livecortex.com/blog. Thanks for listening.